respected lawyer is forced to give up her seat on a plane due to her skin color. When she decides to fight back publicly, she uncovers a hidden truth that could change the airline industry forever. But just as justice seems within reach, she faces an offer that makes her question everything she stands for. Jasmine Carter glanced briefly at her boarding pass as she moved along the narrow aisle, gently pulling her compact suitcase behind her. The hum of conversations, the gentle rustling of overhead compartments opening and closing, and the subdued, artificial cabin lighting made everything appear ordinary. An everyday flight from New York to Atlanta. Yet, Jasmine felt an unusual weight, perhaps an intuitive whisper she couldn't yet decipher. She paused at seat 12A. A window seat she'd specifically booked weeks in advance, preferring the solitude and distraction of clouds. Sliding her bag into the overhead bin, Jasmine quietly settled herself in, feeling comforted by the faint scent of leather and fabric. She took a deep breath and looked outside, where the runway stretched endlessly beneath the faintly gray sky of the early morning. Just as Jasmine adjusted her seatbelt, a gentle tap on her shoulder interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see a flight attendant with a strained, hesitant smile. "Excuse me, ma'am," the attendant, whose name badge read Angela Brooks, said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "I'm terribly sorry, but would you mind switching seats? Another passenger has requested it." Jasmine blinked, slightly confused. "Is there an issue?" Angela's eyes briefly flicked to the man standing behind her, a tall, middle-aged white passenger whose face wore an unmistakable mask of discomfort. He avoided Jasmine's gaze. He feels uncomfortable sitting here," Angela explained delicately, eyes filled with embarrassment. "I realize this is unusual, and I'm truly sorry to ask you to move." A tightness formed immediately in Jasmine's chest, her pulse quickening. Uncomfortable. The implication was unmistakable, striking Jasmine deeply. Yet, even with anger simmering beneath her composed exterior, Jasmine instinctively glanced around, noticing the subtle shift in attention from other passengers. Curious whispers and sidelong glances filled the cabin like static electricity. "Is this really necessary?" Jasmine asked calmly but firmly. Her voice was steady, though internally she felt humiliated. The uncomfortable silence stretched as the passengers nearby became openly attentive. Angela looked genuinely apologetic, her expression torn between her obvious discomfort and the responsibility to fulfill an unpleasant order. "I'm so sorry. My supervisor asked me personally to make this request. We do have a similar seat available, just 2 rows back." For a moment, Jasmine considered pushing back, voicing her outrage and defending her rights, but she knew such actions would escalate the situation. She felt trapped between dignity and the looming threat of causing a scene. Finally, Jasmine exhaled slowly, gathering every ounce of composure she possessed. "Fine," she conceded quietly, rising with deliberate grace. Every eye seemed fixed upon her, intensifying her discomfort as she retrieved her belongings. Angela whispered another heartfelt apology, guiding Jasmine toward her new seat, leaving behind the passenger whose sense of comfort had displaced her. Settling into the new seat, Jasmine stared blankly ahead, her mind swirling in disbelief. As the engines hummed louder and the plane began to taxi, she felt acutely aware of the humiliation she'd just silently endured, one she sensed would linger far beyond this flight. Even before the plane touched the runway in Atlanta, Jasmine's silent humiliation had already traveled miles beyond her seat. Several rows behind, Clara Wilson, a young journalism student returning home from an internship, had discreetly recorded the unsettling exchange. Clara's hands trembled slightly as she reviewed the footage, anxiety and anger mingling in her chest. Within moments, Clara uploaded the short clip to her Twitter account. She added a simple but poignant caption. "Today I witnessed racism disguised as passenger comfort. This should not be tolerated. #Liberty Airlines #End Racism." The video quickly gained traction, spreading like wildfire. Passengers connected to the plane's Wi-Fi shared whispers and furtive glances, aware of the digital storm brewing around them. Jasmine remained unaware, isolated by her internal reflections and the lingering sting of humiliation. When the plane landed, Jasmine quietly retrieved her belongings and exited swiftly, eager to leave behind the discomfort of the journey. But as soon as she activated her phone, a flood of notifications startled her. Her screen was alive with messages, missed calls, and alerts. Confusion knitted her brow as she scrolled through the relentless stream of Twitter notifications, emails from news outlets, and concerned texts from colleagues and friends. Jasmine paused in disbelief, standing motionless in the bustling airport terminal. Her heart pounded as she opened Clara's video, now trending nationally. Watching herself relive that painful moment publicly was even worse than experiencing it firsthand. A mix of embarrassment, anger, and helplessness tightened her throat, leaving her breathless. Suddenly aware of the people around her, Jasmine felt paranoia creeping in. She lifted her eyes cautiously, half expecting judgmental gazes, but the travelers moved past, oblivious to her internal turmoil. As she left the terminal, the impact of the video became clearer. Strangers debated fiercely online, sharing opinions that ranged from passionate support to hurtful skepticism. Journalists began reaching out, eager for her side of the story, hungry for controversy. The sensation of exposure overwhelmed Jasmine, who was accustomed to speaking publicly on behalf of others, not being the center of scrutiny herself. Arriving home, Jasmine immediately locked her door, seeking refuge in solitude. Her apartment, usually a haven of peace, now felt exposed, vulnerable. Dropping her belongings on the sofa, she sank heavily into the familiar cushions, struggling to process the flood of emotions. Her phone vibrated incessantly, a reminder that privacy was now elusive. Fighting back tears, Jasmine briefly considered shutting it off, retreating from the world. But curiosity and determination overcame the impulse. She decided she had to face the public response, to understand what this moment meant, not just for her but for countless others. As Jasmine read through the reactions, she noticed a powerful pattern emerging. Stories of similar experiences, voiced by people who had previously remained silent. Her humiliation, painful and personal as it was, had somehow resonated deeply with others, becoming a symbol of shared injustice. It was in that realization she began to see beyond her immediate pain. Yet, among the messages of solidarity were cruel comments dismissing her experience, suggesting she was exaggerating or seeking attention. Each harsh word stung deeply, testing her resilience. The internal conflict within Jasmine intensified as she wrestled with her desire to retreat versus her responsibility to respond, to use her voice against the injustice she had endured. Exhausted but resolute, Jasmine closed her eyes and breathed deeply. Her identity as a fierce advocate for justice gradually resurfaced, providing clarity amid chaos. Despite the pain of public humiliation, Jasmine sensed the unexpected shift. What had initially been a moment of private shame was rapidly becoming a national conversation, and possibly a catalyst for change. Jasmine awoke the next morning to sunlight filtering gently through her bedroom curtains, the faint hum of traffic drifting from the streets below. For a brief, comforting moment, her mind remained blank, free from the turmoil of yesterday's events. Then reality surged back, carrying the full weight of humiliation and exposure. She reached reflexively for her phone, dread tightening her chest as she saw dozens of unread messages and missed calls. News outlets were aggressively pursuing her for interviews, and friends had left concerned voicemails, offering support. Yet, amidst the anxiety, something surprising emerged. Numerous messages of gratitude and solidarity from strangers nationwide. One email in particular caught her attention. A young woman named Alicia, a college student from California, shared a similar experience she'd endured months earlier but had been too afraid to speak up. "Your bravery inspires me," Alicia wrote. Jasmine stared at those words, her heart both heavy and hopeful. Still processing the conflicting emotions, Jasmine prepared her usual morning coffee. As the familiar aroma filled her kitchen, she considered her options carefully. A wave of uncertainty gripped her stomach. Taking action meant facing more public scrutiny, Retreating meant allowing injustice to persist unchecked. She paced the small space, coffee forgotten, weighing her private fears against her professional conviction. Her thoughts were interrupted by a gentle knock at her door. Jasmine tensed, cautious and uncertain. Through the peephole, she recognized her close friend and colleague, Marcus Reed, a seasoned civil rights attorney with whom she had tackled many high-profile cases. Relief washed over her as she unlocked the door. Marcus immediately enveloped Jasmine in a comforting embrace. "I came as soon as I heard," he said softly. His presence alone brought reassurance, grounding Jasmine back into a familiar world of strength and support. Seated at the kitchen table, Jasmine recounted the events of the flight and the subsequent whirlwind. Marcus listened intently, his face a mix of empathy and anger. "You know what you need to do, Jazz," Marcus finally said, voice steady and resolute. "You can either let them silence you or use your voice to speak for everyone else who's been forced into silence." Jasmine met Marcus's gaze, determination slowly replacing the uncertainty that had clouded her thoughts earlier. The memory of Alicia's email resurfaced, along with countless others echoing the same painful experiences. It was no longer just her fight, it was theirs too. "I'm afraid, Marcus," she admitted quietly, her vulnerability laid bare. "This isn't like other cases. This one feels so personal." Marcus nodded gently, his understanding clear. "It is personal, but that's exactly why your voice matters now more than ever. You're not alone in this. I'm with you, and many others will stand beside you." She took a deep breath, feeling the familiar resolve returning. Jasmine knew Marcus was right. She couldn't allow fear to overpower the truth. Despite the risk, she had always believed justice was worth pursuing, especially when the stakes felt impossibly high. "I'll do it," Jasmine finally said, voice steady and firm. "I'll file a lawsuit against Liberty Airlines. Not just for me, but for everyone who's ever felt this pain and stayed silent." Marcus smiled, pride evident in his eyes. "That's the Jasmine Carter I know. We'll make sure they can't ignore this." With her decision made, Jasmine felt a sense of clarity returning. The fear remained, but now it was balanced by purpose. She had chosen not to retreat but to confront injustice head-on, knowing this battle would test her in ways she had never imagined. Yet, Jasmine knew one undeniable truth. Silence would never lead to change, and it was time for her voice to be heard. As news of Jasmine's lawsuit spread, Liberty Airlines swiftly went into damage control. Richard Evans, the company's influential PR executive, knew exactly how delicate their public image was, particularly given the widespread outcry generated by Jasmine's viral video. Sitting in his glass-walled office overlooking the bustling streets of Manhattan, Richard quickly assembled a team of crisis specialists. "We need to control the narrative," Richard stated firmly, pacing the boardroom as the gathered team watched him intently. "This lawsuit can cost us more than money. It can ruin our reputation entirely." Richard's assistant, Emma, nervously handed him a file containing Jasmine Carter's professional and personal background. As he scanned the documents, his eyes settled on details that could be twisted, reshaped, weaponized against Jasmine to sow doubt. Within hours, anonymous social media accounts began surfacing online, subtly questioning Jasmine's credibility and intentions. Rumors appeared, crafted carefully to erode public sympathy. Jasmine's past relationships, minor conflicts at work, even innocuous details from her private life were spun into sinister narratives. Back at her apartment, Jasmine watched in disbelief as these fabricated attacks escalated. Her inbox overflowed with messages from strangers, some supportive, others aggressively hostile. Her once secure life now felt frighteningly exposed, her character publicly dissected by those determined to undermine her. Marcus, seeing the toll it took on Jasmine, stopped by that evening. Sitting beside her in the quiet living room, he noticed the exhaustion in her eyes. "They're turning me into someone I'm not," Jasmine whispered, her voice heavy with frustration. "It feels like they're winning." Marcus gently placed his hand on hers, offering reassurance. They want you to feel defeated, Jasmine. This is their strategy, to distract and intimidate. Don't let them succeed. Jasmine nodded, forcing herself to remain strong despite the emotional strain. But inside, she questioned whether her strength was enough. The calculated cruelty of the airline's tactics was unexpected, and the scale of their influence frightened her. Meanwhile, Angela Brooks, the flight attendant who had originally requested Jasmine to switch seats, followed the events online with growing discomfort. Guilt gnawed at her conscience, especially now, watching Jasmine unfairly maligned. Torn between loyalty to her employer and her moral convictions, Angela quietly struggled with a decision that could change her life forever. Back in Richard Evans' office, he observed the unfolding public response, satisfied yet cautious. Despite successfully sowing seeds of doubt, he sensed that public opinion remained dangerously divided. His strategy was working, but Richard knew it was still fragile. One wrong move could collapse everything, turning public sentiment decisively against Liberty Airlines. Leaning back in his chair, Richard considered his next step. Jasmine Carter was resilient, far stronger than he'd anticipated, and he realized they would have to push harder to silence her completely. Across the city, Jasmine prepared herself emotionally, determined not to yield to intimidation. Unaware of the storm yet to come, she steadied herself, resolved to fight harder, driven now not just by justice but by sheer survival. Late into the night, Angela Brooks sat alone at her small dining table, the room illuminated only by the soft glow of her laptop screen. The backlash Jasmine Carter faced weighed heavily on Angela's conscience. Her mind replayed that humiliating moment on the plane, and the look of dignified pain etched on Jasmine's face haunted her. Angela had watched Liberty Airlines systematically undermine Jasmine's reputation, feeling sickened by her own complicity. Torn between fear for her career and the growing sense of moral obligation, Angela finally made a decision that night. With trembling fingers, she typed a private message to Jasmine's professional email, choosing her words carefully. "Ms. Carter, my name is Angela Brooks. I'm the flight attendant who asked you to change seats. I cannot begin to express my regret over what happened and my own role in it. I have information about Liberty Airlines' internal policies and management practices that could help your case. If you're willing, I'd like to speak privately." Angela hesitated briefly before pressing send, her heart racing at the implications. She knew this meant risking her career, but her conscience wouldn't allow her silence any longer. Jasmine, startled awake by the soft vibration of her phone, read the email several times before fully comprehending its meaning. The irony was not lost on her. The very woman who had unwittingly sparked this ordeal now reached out, offering support. Jasmine felt skeptical but intrigued. This could significantly strengthen her lawsuit if Angela truly was sincere. The following evening, Angela nervously waited in a quiet cafe downtown, anxiously glancing at every person who entered. When Jasmine arrived, Angela rose immediately, extending her hand hesitantly. Jasmine accepted with cautious warmth, recognizing sincerity in Angela's anxious expression. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Angela admitted softly, eyes filled with remorse. "I wouldn't blame you if you didn't." Jasmine observed her carefully, sensing genuine sincerity. "I needed to know your intentions," Jasmine replied calmly, her expression softening slightly. "Why risk your job?" Angela sighed deeply, guilt and determination warring in her eyes. "I've watched this happen before. Subtle discrimination hidden behind corporate policies. I felt helpless then, but seeing you stand up publicly, I couldn't remain silent anymore." As Angela spoke, Jasmine saw clearly the toll these events had also taken on the flight attendant. Angela confessed the company's internal pressure to comply quietly, describing a workplace culture that prioritized public image over fairness. Jasmine's heart softened further. Angela was not her adversary, but another casualty of a systemic problem. "You realize speaking publicly might cost you everything," Jasmine cautioned gently. Angela nodded, eyes firm with resolve. "Maybe, but silence costs more," Angela replied with quiet conviction. I won't be part of this injustice anymore. Moved by Angela's courage, Jasmine knew this unexpected alliance was powerful. They discussed the specifics of Angela's testimony, crafting a strategy that would publicly reveal Liberty Airlines' discriminatory policies. Their conversation gradually shifted from cautious collaboration to a shared sense of mission. When Angela finally rose to leave, she paused by the door, turning back to Jasmine with a grateful expression. "Thank you for giving me a chance," she said softly. Jasmine smiled warmly, the weight of isolation easing just slightly. "We're in this together now," she reassured Angela, a surprising sense of solidarity blossoming between the two women. As Angela disappeared into the night, Jasmine felt renewed strength. This alliance had given her hope that perhaps justice wasn't beyond reach after all. The courtroom buzzed quietly with anticipation as Jasmine entered, her heels clicking decisively against the polished marble floor. Marcus walked beside her, projecting calm reassurance, though Jasmine could sense his underlying tension. This hearing would determine whether her case against Liberty Airlines would proceed, a critical first step toward justice. Richard Evans sat across the aisle, flanked by attorneys in impeccably tailored suits. His presence felt heavy, commanding, a stark reminder of the powerful forces Jasmine challenged. She took her seat, straightening her posture deliberately to mask her nervousness. The judge, an imposing figure named Judge Evelyn Morrison, entered the courtroom promptly at 9. Her stern gaze swiftly scanned those present, conveying a neutrality that comforted Jasmine slightly. Marcus opened proceedings with a concise, powerful summary of events. His voice carried authority and urgency, recounting Jasmine's experience with dignity and precision. Jasmine felt an immense pride in her friend as he concluded, confidently urging the court to recognize this as a clear instance of racial discrimination. When Liberty Airlines' lead counsel stood to respond, Jasmine braced herself. The attorney was sharp and methodical, swiftly painting the airline as misunderstood and victimized by a rushed judgment of public opinion. He insinuated Jasmine was using the incident for personal gain, remarks carefully crafted to cast doubt on her integrity. As Jasmine absorbed each word, her pulse quickened, but she remained composed outwardly. Marcus gently squeezed her hand under the table, a subtle reassurance to remain calm. Then, unexpectedly, Angela Brooks stepped forward as a witness. Jasmine straightened, watching intently as Angela walked nervously toward the witness stand. Angela's voice trembled slightly at first, but strengthened as she detailed the company's instructions on seating arrangements, quietly confirming Jasmine's allegations and revealing similar past incidents. "Ms. Brooks," the judge asked firmly, eyes focused sharply, "were you instructed explicitly by supervisors to relocate Ms. Carter based solely on another passenger's discomfort?" Angela swallowed, momentarily hesitant. She glanced at Jasmine, drawing strength from her supportive gaze. "Yes," she admitted firmly. "I was explicitly told by my superior that accommodating Mr. Bennett was mandatory, even if it meant disregarding Ms. Carter's rights." The room briefly erupted into murmurs, silenced quickly by the judge's sharp gavel. Richard Evans's jaw tightened visibly, his carefully curated control wavering slightly. Jasmine felt relief wash over her, grateful for Angela's bravery, recognizing the personal risk her new ally had just undertaken. Richard's attorney swiftly attempted damage control, pressing Angela with increasingly harsh questions, implying her testimony was biased or revenge-motivated. Angela endured it stoically, her voice unwavering despite visible strain. Finally, Jasmine herself was called to speak briefly. Her voice resonated through the courtroom, calm yet emotionally charged, recounting the experience clearly. She carefully avoided sensationalizing the event, maintaining dignity and sincerity, leaving little room for doubt. When she finished, Jasmine noticed a subtle shift in the judge's expression, a faint, respectful acknowledgement of her courage. The opposition's attempts to discredit her seemed weaker now, unable to overshadow the sincerity and clarity she conveyed. After hearing all sides, the judge recessed briefly to deliberate. Jasmine, Marcus, and Angela waited together, anxiety and hope mingling within their silence. When the judge finally returned, the room fell into tense silence. "The court finds sufficient evidence to proceed to trial," Judge Morrison announced firmly. Relief and quiet triumph flooded Jasmine. Though the journey was far from over, this ruling was a pivotal victory. Marcus smiled warmly at Jasmine, acknowledging the significance of this moment. Beside them, Angela breathed deeply, understanding clearly that there was no turning back. Jasmine's initial relief at the courtroom decision quickly faded, replaced by an unsettling awareness of how fiercely Liberty Airlines intended to fight back. Within days, subtle but troubling incidents began invading her daily life. Phone calls from unknown numbers at odd hours, emails containing veiled threats, anonymous comments online criticizing her integrity. One rainy evening, returning to her apartment after another exhausting day, Jasmine found her mailbox overflowing with hate mail. With trembling fingers, she opened a particularly disturbing letter. "You're playing a dangerous game. Quit now while you still can." Fear tightened her chest, making her heart race anxiously. It was the first time she genuinely felt unsafe. Marcus arrived immediately after receiving Jasmine's anxious call, concern etched deeply into his face. "This is intimidation, pure and simple," he said firmly, examining the messages carefully. "They want you scared and silent." She sank onto the sofa, rubbing her temples wearily. "I knew they'd come after me, Marcus, but not like this." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We can get security involved. Don't let them make you doubt yourself." Meanwhile, Angela Brooks faced her own struggles within Liberty Airlines. Her co-workers grew distant, conversations silenced abruptly when she entered rooms. Supervisors watched her closely, imposing unrealistic expectations. The isolation was intentional, punishment for her courtroom testimony. Yet, despite the pressure, Angela refused to buckle. She knew standing with Jasmine was right, even as she grappled silently with the potential loss of her livelihood. The sense of injustice Angela once tolerated quietly now consumed her, making retreat impossible. Meanwhile, at Liberty Airlines headquarters, Richard Evans monitored every step of their campaign closely. Though he publicly maintained a calm, professional demeanor, behind closed doors his frustration grew. Jasmine's determination, paired with Angela's damaging testimony, complicated what he'd hoped would be a swiftly managed PR crisis. Richard summoned Emma to his office, pacing impatiently as she entered. "We need to tighten our strategy," he snapped abruptly. "Dig deeper into Carter's past, any detail that can discredit her publicly." Emma hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Sir, are we certain this approach won't backfire?" Richard glared coldly, his voice dangerously low. "We aren't paying you to question ethics, Emma. Just do your job." She nodded silently, retreating from his office, conflicted yet compliant. Across town, Jasmine remained determined, though the emotional toll was mounting. She found solace by revisiting supportive messages from strangers who had endured similar injustices. Each email, letter, or social media post became a source of strength, reminding her this fight was about more than herself. It was a battle for dignity and respect for many others. That evening, Jasmine stood quietly by her apartment window. The city lights blurred through tears she refused to let fall. She had reached a crossroads, fully aware of the daunting battle ahead. But in her heart, she knew there was no turning back. As darkness settled around her apartment, Jasmine vowed silently to endure whatever came next. Liberty Airlines might intimidate, threaten, and attempt to silence her, but she refused to give them her fear. Her dignity, she resolved, would never again be compromised. 2 weeks before the trial was set to begin, Jasmine received an unexpected call from Marcus, his voice heavy with caution. Liberty Airlines had presented a settlement offer, $2 million in exchange for dropping the lawsuit and signing a strict non-disclosure agreement. The phone shook slightly in Jasmine's hand as she absorbed Marcus's words. $2 million was life-changing money, enough to comfortably secure her future. Yet, accepting it meant surrendering everything she'd fought for. She sat quietly, her breathing measured but tense. Marcus spoke gently, sensing her conflict. "Jasmine, this offer means they're afraid. But it's also your choice. If you continue, this fight will become even harder, more public, more personal." She closed her eyes, picturing the faces of all the people who had reached out, sharing their painful experiences and drawing courage from her stand. "Do you think I should accept?" Marcus hesitated briefly. "Honestly, well, this offer tells me we're close to something bigger than money. They're hoping you'll choose comfort over justice." She sighed, heart heavy. "Then we keep fighting." Days passed, but Liberty Airlines persisted, sweetening the deal and increasing pressure. Friends urged Jasmine to consider accepting, arguing she'd done enough by exposing the injustice publicly. Even Angela understood if Jasmine wanted to accept, knowing how draining the battle had become. One evening, sitting alone in her living room, Jasmine held a letter from Alicia, the young woman whose email had inspired her weeks earlier. The handwritten note simply said, "Your voice gave me courage to speak mine. Thank you." Jasmine's heart swelled painfully, understanding clearly that accepting money meant silencing Alicia and others like her once again. The following morning, Jasmine met Richard Evans and Liberty Airlines attorneys face-to-face in a sleek conference room downtown. Richard wore a practiced, conciliatory expression. "Ms. Carter," he began smoothly, "we deeply regret this misunderstanding and sincerely hope we can resolve it here amicably. The settlement we've offered could bring closure." She looked directly into Richard's eyes, unwavering despite her racing pulse. "Mr. Evans, what happened wasn't a misunderstanding. It was discrimination. And justice isn't something I'm willing to sell." Richard's polished expression faltered slightly, irritation briefly surfacing. He leaned forward, voice lowered. "Think carefully. Trials are unpredictable and public. Your entire life will be exposed." Silence filled the room briefly. Richard leaned back, recognizing the resolve in her eyes. He nodded stiffly, signaling the meeting's end. As Jasmine rose to leave, she felt lighter, her decision reaffirming her strength. Walking out into the bright sunlight, Jasmine inhaled deeply, feeling profoundly liberated. She knew the path ahead would be difficult, filled with uncertainty and pain, but her decision had never felt clearer. The trial would continue, not only for her sake but for Alicia, Angela, and countless others still voiceless. Jasmine Carter was ready to fight, and no amount of money could buy her silence now. The courtroom was filled to capacity, the atmosphere electric with anticipation. Jasmine felt a blend of anxiety and determination as she took her seat beside Marcus. Angela sat behind her, offering a reassuring presence, though visibly tense. Across the aisle, Richard Evans appeared composed, his calm facade barely hiding his frustration. Jasmine briefly met his gaze, unwilling to show intimidation. Judge Morrison entered, instantly commanding attention. After brief formalities, Marcus rose to deliver his opening statement. His voice resonated clearly through the room, narrating Jasmine's experience with clarity and dignity. He emphasized this wasn't just about Jasmine Carter. It represented a broader fight against discrimination. When Liberty Airlines attorney rose, the room's tension spiked. His tone was dismissive, painting Jasmine as someone seeking attention, exaggerating a trivial inconvenience into a scandal. Jasmine listened carefully, her pulse quickening with suppressed anger, though outwardly she remained calm and dignified. Angela was called to testify first. Jasmine felt protective of her newfound ally, aware of the pressure Angela faced. Angela described Liberty Airlines' internal practices clearly, detailing the systemic discrimination she'd observed. Her testimony was honest, compelling, and delivered with quiet strength. During cross-examination, Liberty's attorney aggressively challenged Angela's credibility. "Ms. Brooks, isn't this just an act of revenge after conflicts with your employer? Angela met his gaze directly, unwavering. "No, this is about accountability. I participated in something wrong, and now I'm standing against it." Her voice carried conviction, silencing the room. Jasmine felt pride swell within her, grateful for Angela's bravery under intense scrutiny. Finally, Jasmine took the witness stand herself. Facing the jury, she recounted her experience with measured clarity, avoiding dramatics but openly expressing the humiliation she'd endured. Each word was genuine, heartfelt, and direct. Liberty's attorney began his cross-examination sharply. "Ms. Carter, isn't it true you've leveraged this situation for personal visibility and professional advantage?" Jasmine took a deep breath, calmly responding, "No, I chose to speak out because remaining silent only enables discrimination. My dignity is worth far more than any professional gain." Her clear, sincere response seemed to resonate deeply with the jury. She maintained eye contact, inviting them to understand her truth. Afterward, Marcus rose to deliver his closing argument. His words were powerful, emphasizing the broader implications of Jasmine's fight, not just for her own dignity, but for those who had faced similar injustices without recourse. The courtroom listened intently, Marcus's voice steady, confident, and passionate. Liberty Airlines had a responsibility, a moral duty, to protect all passengers equally, Marcus concluded firmly. Today, you can hold them accountable for violating that duty. Richard Evans shifted uncomfortably in his seat, clearly aware of the strength of Marcus's argument. Following a tense wait, Judge Morrison called the jury back into the courtroom. Jasmine's heart raced with anticipation as silence settled once again. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" the judge asked solemnly. "We have, Your Honor," the foreperson replied firmly. "We find Liberty Airlines liable for racial discrimination against Jasmine Carter." Relief washed over Jasmine, almost overwhelming in its intensity. She closed her eyes briefly, processing the significance of this victory. Marcus gently squeezed her shoulder in quiet acknowledgement. Across the aisle, Richard's composed facade crumbled slightly, revealing a flash of disbelief and anger. Jasmine observed silently, feeling validated yet soberly aware of the cost of this battle. Outside the courthouse, supporters and reporters gathered. Jasmine stepped forward confidently to address them, her words precise and impactful. "This victory isn't just mine," Jasmine began, speaking calmly into the array of microphones. "It belongs to everyone who ever experienced discrimination silently. Today proves that dignity and equality cannot be compromised or negotiated." Cameras flashed as applause broke out spontaneously, reinforcing Jasmine's message. She stood taller, knowing that, despite the struggle, justice had finally spoken clearly. Her voice now undeniably heard. Following the verdict, Jasmine's life transformed dramatically. Her victory brought recognition, but more importantly, it fueled a movement demanding change within corporations nationwide. Jasmine knew the fight against discrimination was far from over, but she had ignited something powerful, a call for justice that resonated deeply. Weeks after the trial, sitting quietly at her kitchen table, Jasmine found herself reflecting on everything she'd endured. The apartment felt calm once more, yet the weight of her journey lingered profoundly. Amidst the stillness, an idea emerged clearly in her mind, taking shape with unmistakable purpose. The next morning, Jasmine met Angela at a quiet cafe. Angela seemed lighter, free from the stress she'd carried during the trial, smiling warmly as Jasmine approached. "I have something I want to discuss," Jasmine said, eyes bright with determination. Angela leaned forward curiously. "Anything. I want to create something lasting, a foundation dedicated to combating workplace discrimination. An organization not just supporting victims legally, but educating companies and individuals proactively." Angela's eyes widened, clearly inspired. That could genuinely change things. "Count me in." Jasmine felt energized by Angela's immediate support, confirming she'd made the right choice. Over the following weeks, they worked tirelessly, transforming Jasmine's vision into reality. Together, they established the Carter Brooks Foundation, an initiative combining legal advocacy, education programs, and public awareness campaigns against racial discrimination. News of their foundation spread quickly, attracting widespread attention. Alicia, the young woman whose email had initially inspired Jasmine, became their first volunteer. Her presence was symbolic, reinforcing Jasmine's belief that their victory in court was only the beginning. As the foundation grew, Jasmine and Angela became powerful symbols of resilience and change. Invitations to speak at conferences, universities, and corporate seminars multiplied. Jasmine embraced these opportunities, sharing her story openly, determined never again to allow silence or fear to suppress justice. One evening, at the Foundation's launch event, Jasmine stood confidently before a diverse audience of supporters and allies. The room buzzed with anticipation, united by a shared commitment to justice. "Months ago, I faced something painful and unjust," Jasmine began, her voice strong yet gentle. "But through that pain I discovered strength. My own, Angela's, and yours. Our foundation is more than a response to injustice. It's a testament to the power of solidarity and courage." Her words resonated deeply, echoed by enthusiastic applause. As Jasmine stepped off stage, Marcus embraced her warmly, pride evident in his smile. "You've changed everything, Jasmine." She glanced at Angela, whose eyes sparkled proudly. "No, we've changed everything. Together." Later that night, alone in her quiet apartment, Jasmine felt deeply satisfied yet humbled. Her journey had tested every aspect of her character, challenging her to confront fears she'd never anticipated. Yet, through those trials, she'd become stronger, wiser, more determined. As she gazed thoughtfully out her window, Jasmine understood clearly that her victory had been about far more than personal justice. It represented hope, a profound belief that dignity and equality were achievable goals. With a deep breath, Jasmine turned away from the window, embracing fully the new beginning she'd forged. The fight for justice was endless, yet her resolve remained unwavering. Jasmine Carter knew her voice now carried power, and she'd never allow it to fall silent again. What would you do if forced to choose between your dignity and a life-changing fortune? Would you accept the money and silence your voice? Or would you stand up, risking everything to uphold justice and truth? Click on the video right here on the screen to continue this powerful journey of self-discovery and courage. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join us in telling more stories that inspire strength, dignity, and change. See you there.